Aotearoa, lovely to have you both here. I wondered if we could perhaps start, Madeline, for those who aren't familiar with the AI Forum. What is it? Who's on it? How does it work?
So the AI Forum was formed in 2017, and it is an industry membership body. Our membership's made up of about 5% academia, about 7% government, and the balance is business, including Spark and a few other organisations that will be represented in the audience here today. Its purpose is to harness the power of, help New Zealand to harness the power of AI for a prosperous, equitable and and inclusive future New Zealand, or Aotearoa.
Megan, I know that the forum has been working on its blueprint for AI, but now the government's telling us that we're going to have a strategy for AI. What does that strategy need to include, and what is your research telling you about what needs to be included?
Yeah, look, kia ora and tēnā tātou, kia koutou katoa, ngā mihi kia koutou. So thank you for having us here to talk about what I think is actually a very instrumental conversation for Aotearoa when we look at around how we approach technology generally, but specifically artificial intelligence, because of the scale of impact that this technology can have. And so as the AI Forum, we know that it's really important to ensure that there's inclusion across our whole landscape, and bringing that Māori view into the conversation is a big driver for us. Madeline just shared what the forum does. Part of the membership group and community is ensuring that that Māori voice is heard. And we have a kāhui Māori, a kāhui meaning a body of Māori who represent that view, so it's not just a single view. And we've worked really hard around trying to ensure that every conversation, every report we produce includes what is a really unique aspect of who we are on the global stage, and bring that opportunity to life. And as we've pulled together the blueprint, we've ensured, we've collected, and the power of the AI Forum is the industry connectivity that we offer. The table of experts that sit around it come from corporate, small, medium, startup, government, and so we're bringing that collective view into the room, and the blueprint is focused on, we believe, 6 strategic areas for New Zealand, that being health, architecture and engineering, agriculture, our teaching and education community,
Creative industries,
and
architecture, engineering, construction.
May have that, there's 6 anyway.
Yep.
And so that the blueprint is designed on what each of those industries feel is most important, because the technology has different impact. If you think of the creative industries, they're more concerned around IP and the impact that the technology will have around sharing, quite rightly, what belongs to them, their beautiful years of experience, which is all of a sudden freely available. So they've got quite a different perspective to education, and we've heard around the importance of being educated with our kids and the teachers. How do we bring that into the classroom to advance ourselves and grow our pipeline of future technologists? Versus health, I mean, health has a much different regulatory landscape. So each industry has a different point of view, I guess, is the point there. And the strategy needs to take into account how we balance a broader proposition in that space.
So Madeline, what does that tell the government? Because I imagine if they're looking at an AI strategy, this could be a behemoth of a thing. And also, AI moves fast, and government tends to move slow. So are they going to write us a strategy that was relevant for what AI did yesterday, or what AI is going to do tomorrow?
So they're very much focused on the future. So just for a bit of context, so the AI Forum has been agitating for an AI strategy since 2017, and we published, in all of that time we built up a fantastic knowledge base. We brought some really cool, really great people together to talk about this, and bringing experts together, as Megan was indicating, convening them to lead this thought leadership, for want of a better term. And enabling people to get involved in those discussions and produced that blueprint, which we published in July and forms the basis or is one of the reference documents for that AI strategy. So it's, I think one of the important things for New Zealand is to realise is that we're not a backwater when it comes to artificial intelligence. We have some of the, so especially in our academic fields, we have world-leading experts. I can name 3 or 4 who sit on our executive council. They're not the only ones. We really do. We really rock at this stuff. We're really good at it. And so, so you can imagine bringing experts like that together to inform a blueprint that then becomes a foundation document for, or a reference document for that AI strategy going forward is going to help to ensure, and that ongoing dialogue is going to help to ensure that that strategy is forward-facing.
So we've got experts, but is it that we've got this long tail? We might have people at the forefront over here, but we need to bring everybody who might have no idea about what's going on along for the ride, lest we just increase the digital divide. So how do we leverage the people who know what they're talking about to bring everyone else along?
So there's a big thing about building trust, and it's not unique to New Zealand. I've been to a few international conferences, and it's a common theme, building trust in artificial intelligence. Building trust, especially when things maybe don't always go right, is a difficult thing. And understanding, building that trust and understanding, and doing that through inclusion of all communities, will help you to get there.
And actually, just building on that, I think if I go back 5 years, everybody's got a role to play around education and that trust component, and the media back then was anything negative around artificial intelligence, I grab onto it. There are examples when facial recognition tech come out, and varying use cases, the Apple gender calculation around between a male and female, a male getting more credit than the female. So there were lots that come out, and there was this real negative impact that came around, and for good reason. I mean, but everything's around balance and opportunity, understanding the challenge versus the opportunity and how we deal with that. And education, it comes down to, the tech might be amazing, but it comes down to humans at the end of the day. And the irony is not lost on me when we talk about ethics. We've had humans behind technology for years, and that's why we are in the place that we are when you reference digital divide, and how we position ourselves about that moving forward with AI is really important, and it starts with education. And everybody in this room has a role to play, whether you're an organisation, whether you're an individual using it, educate yourself, whether you're a parent with your children, whether you're a CEO of a company, we all need to play a role there, and the sooner we understand that, the sooner we'll be able to advance ourselves. And just within the forum, we've run masterclasses for some businesses and organisations for a while. So we've taken it seriously. We're not just a body that's here talking about this. We're thinking about how we can influence.
It's about action.
Yeah.
Well, it's a very good point you raise. What resources are out there for the people in the room or the general population to upskill themselves to feel more empowered on the adoption of AI? Madeline?
So there's a number of things that are running out there, and there's everything from the Callaghan AI Activator, which they announced a couple of months ago and is up and running. There's everything from that. Spark has their own accelerator, which includes a mini MBA in AI, which is fantastic. There are, if I was out there now, and I am out there, but and I have actually done this myself, so I can talk about it, as someone who leads an organisation or someone in a senior decision-making space, and I want to upskill in artificial intelligence, go out and take a micro-credentials. So there are lots of schools out there from the universities, and other tertiary institutions. In Auckland, there's Academy EX and Media Design School as examples. They offer micro-credentials where you can learn about how to use AI in your transformation, how you can learn how to integrate that into your strategy in a safe and responsible way. One of the other things that the AI Forum has done in the last couple of years, while waiting for everything else to sort of thing, is to help provide those tool sets for organisations. So there's a website called aigovernance.nz, and that provides really useful foundation for any organisation looking to adopt artificial intelligence responsibly. It's a key contributor, a key concern of ours, that people are not just using this stuff, but they understand what they're doing, and that they're using it responsibly.
So there are resources out there, but are there enough resources out there? Is it all accessible to everybody?
There is a movement now amongst, so from an education perspective, there's a wonderful community of practice that teachers have set up for themselves around educating themselves around artificial intelligence, because as we all know, government moves a little bit more slowly, and perhaps the Ministry of Education are, while they're trying to get there, they're not quite there yet. And so teachers are educating themselves, and we're helping to promote that amongst that community, to make sure that they do have the information necessary to pass on to, for example, school children. And then in the existing workforce, there are a number of organisations, Spark being one of them, who are out there providing this kind of education. But no, I don't think there is enough out there, and I think there are. We could do a lot to promote some of the other NGO type organisations like Fibre Whale and whatnot, who are really helping to embed knowledge about artificial intelligence and all digital technologies in our communities.
Megan, what about the privacy aspect? Is that the foundational piece that we need to get right at the beginning of this strategy? Does that come later? Does it limit what we can achieve at a government level? Because obviously they've got access to all sorts of incredibly private information. And if we're moving into this AI adoption era, does that slow them down a little bit?
I heard an analogy not so long ago around, we didn't realise we needed privacy law until the camera was invented. And, it's a reflection on the state of technology and the state of, I guess, society generally, and that regulation and laws are always catching up to what's in front of us. And privacy law exists. It's already there. It offers that protection already around our human rights and amongst other things. So I don't know that the privacy law needs to catch up. We've got... From a Māori perspective specifically, we've got the Māori data sovereignty, so protection of data and what we do with data is a really important topic. And many of you are sitting in this room thinking, what's that got to do with me? But as we look to address the Māori data sovereignty issues in New Zealand, and there is pressure back on the government to think around how they put controls with data. Now, do we keep it locally? Does it go out internationally? And what does that mean? And I think we've all got to go back and think contextually around history. And our history is still quite young here in New Zealand, and it's still quite real to many of us. And the Toitū Te Tiriti March, which is happening right here and now, is a good example of how the hurt of past wrongs are still quite alive. And so there's going to be pressure around how we take the data and that trust component of the government. So there's pressure on government to think about what they do with data, and the Māori data sovereignty principles are really important around that. And as we move into this modern age of contracts with third-party and fourth-party providers, I think we're going to grow to see a world where you're going to need to understand where your data came from. And if that data source or lineage starts with government, how does that start to play out around the data that we're using and the privacy of that data and where that data is hosted? Now, that might not be here today, and maybe under this current government, it might not be something that's settled on, but we need to be designing for the future state of Aotearoa. So really, we need to be thinking around privacy across many lenses, privacy of the individuals, but privacy of our data and how that's used longer term. So there's a bit of thinking, and I think unravelling in this space for Aotearoa in the future.
There's some really good questions coming in from the floor. Aaron says, in New Zealand we seem to be trying to progress things individually at company, organisation or industry level, competing against each other. How do we find a way to collaborate more together, and I guess this goes to the Singaporean model, to compete against the rest of the world rather than just against each other?
I would disagree to a certain extent. So within the forum itself, we have a large number of startups and SMEs within that. Obviously, most the majority of organisations in New Zealand are small, medium enterprises. They work really well together. They really collaborate, and they support each other. There's more than enough in the AI space for them to be getting on with without competing against each other. And you see the same thing in the SaaS community. The SaaS community is really supportive on the whole. I mean, in the gaming community as well, they're really supportive of each other, and they go together really well.
So you don't see any need for greater collaboration? You think it's already happening, but maybe people can't see it happening?
I think there's probably a need to help people see where it's happening and help them to get involved. But there are what I see is a lot of people really interested in collaboration.
There's a really good question here from Aki, because we talked about access to resources and upskilling. As a high school student in New Zealand, I feel there's no opportunity for internship or experience/education in AI engineering now and during university. The only opportunity I have is going overseas. How do I find opportunity here? Do you think there are opportunities here, or is Aki right and there are better opportunities elsewhere?
There's a lot of work to do in this space, I think, in New Zealand. So at the moment, we're in a bit of an economic tightening. And so whereas last year there were a lot of opportunities, or a lot more opportunities for internships, this year they haven't necessarily materialised, or in the last 12 months. Mm-hmm. And that's something to do with where our economy is, rather than the desire of organisations to bring new talent in. We run things. We run events like we run a AI hackathon for the AI for the Environment hackathon annually, and that's a New Zealand-wide thing. And what that gives students and also other people within organisations is not only the opportunity to play with AI in a field that maybe they've never tried it out in before, which is kind of cool. And worst case scenario, you create something great for the environment. How bad is that? And build some contents. But what a lot of people use that for, and what I noticed this year, especially the one in Auckland, was a lot of people turning up to that, using it to build industry connections. So for somebody like Aki, I would try and find those sorts of events where you're likely, and like this event, where you're likely to meet people who maybe will give you that opportunity to intern.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're a high school student and you're here today, all power to you. Like, you're doing the right thing to advance your skills. There's a question here from Savannah, which might be a good one for you, Megan. Given that Pacific people will make up around a third of the workforce in Aotearoa by 2026, but around 59% of them are in lower skilled jobs, does AI pose a risk to them having an equal opportunity to participate in and contribute to the economy?
I think it would be a miss to say that it doesn't. I think there's work there to be done around how we look to educate, how we look to educate and reintroduce skills to that workforce. I think with the way in which prompt engineering is moving, there are opportunities for those who want to be engaged with it, and for being part of the AI community. It's becoming a little bit more accessible from that sense. But it's really hard. I mean, I've got 3 kids, and I would love for them to study STEM, but none of them are interested in it. And when we think about the role of being behind the tools, whether you're a developer and having hands on keyboards, or being part of an organisation and driving the implementation of tech, you need a base skill set to start with. So there's a lot of drive around for our Māori. How do we change that narrative to ensure that we are encouraging Māori and Pacifica into skills that will allow them to participate in the industry. So for AI itself, I think it's unreasonable to think we're all focusing on productivity as organisations. We're all looking for opportunities of how we rationalise. The reality is our workforce is one of our biggest levers to control when it comes to costs. It's just a fact. And so in doing that, though, the question to organisations is, what role are we playing in creating alternative roles that those who are losing jobs can participate in, to still be part of a community, part of the working workforce. So there's work to do, and I don't think there's any clear answer, but I think it's naive for us to think that it won't have an impact.
And it actually produces a really good opportunity, and I think there are organisations, and I don't want to go back to Spark again, but Spark at Air New Zealand and others who have used have used artificial intelligence in the creation of new tool sets as a lever to create career mobility for people in different domains within, or domain expertise within their organisation. So, for example, if you're creating a new tool set that involves someone from that is directed at customer service, so the interface with your customer, it's really important that you bring someone in from that, or people in from that customer service area who directly talk to customers, because they're the ones who know where the pain points are. They're the ones who know how to interact with customers and what works and what doesn't. You bring them into your development, your design and development squad, and in the process you're creating career mobility for that person, because now they're picking up a new skill set, and you end up with a better product at the end of it. So you end up developing something that works much better. And I think if you can adopt sort of principles like that from an organisational perspective, you can really help that career mobility. It's not just a third of the working population predicted to be Pacific Island, but by 2040, we're expecting the current stats, and this Datacom stats, not mine, indicate that 40% of the workforce will be Māori. So it's incredibly important that we create those channels for career mobility.
Absolutely. I guess as a follow-up to that, Ryan's asked a question about New Zealand's role as a leader within the Pacific. What role does the Forum have in guiding small Pacific Island nations who will also be grappling with the issue of AI and how it serves or doesn't serve Indigenous communities? So do we have the resources and the expertise and the thought leadership to provide them with some guidance?
Yeah, look, that's a really good question, and my day job actually, a part of my day job is is managing the tech for ANZ in the Pacific region, so I have quite close connectivity from a day-to-day across the Pacific, and I'm dealing with the skill sets of those people in those countries around being in a workforce there. So I feel relatively close to the capability and competency across some of those countries, and some are stronger than others. And again, businesses need to invest. There's a challenge within the Pacific itself because everyone's looking to come to Australia, New Zealand, or the US. You know, immigration's a real problem. You train the skill sets and they leave, and you know, it's just part of being there and them looking for their next steps and opportunities in life. So that sustainability of workforce there is a real challenge. But at the end of the day, there's still a role there potentially for us to play as part of the hackathon that Madeline mentioned. We involved Fiji as part of that from an environmental perspective, and bringing a group and upskilling themselves in that way. I've lectured at universities out there around how to try to uplift their competency, AI generally. So there's work to do, and we do try to touch base with there. But we've got a way to go.
And there's also, so Dr. Karaitiana Tauru is the chair of our Kahui Māori, which Megan mentioned earlier. And bringing that Māori voice to the fore within the forum and also New Zealand has the advantage of the Māori Renaissance having started in the 1980s, so we have a good history of talking about these difficult topics. I was at the Pacific Data Sovereignty workshop, so it was the first one a couple of months ago, and Karaitiana spoke there, and he's sharing his knowledge, though, sharing the ways that Māori have been approaching this, and sharing that expertise with that community to help them get a jump start on their journey.
Nice.
How do we surmount some of the biases that seem to be, I guess, inherent in AI? If it's only learning from what's come before it, what's out there on the World Wide Web, and we have these inherent gender, ethnic, age biases, how do we stop that from just simply infiltrating how we shape the future with AI? Like the example I saw was the use of AI in rifling through a stack of CVs And if it only looks at what the successful candidates look like over the past 10 years, then it's only going to cast forward the same thing, right? So if we haven't got diversity and inclusion right before, how does it help us get it right in the future?
Yeah, look, it's a really, really valid conversation, and many organisations are grappling with that, and they're bringing in responsible AI guidelines and their own ethics policies. And as much as we try to deal with it, the humans are still largely sitting behind it, and we're biased. It's a fact. We know we accept it, then we think about how are we going to deal with that in the way that we work. And so that's where regulation has a role to play, and we're seeing varying countries around the world take different approaches around that. And an example of the way regulation could work well for some industries is ensuring that we have some sort of audit process across it where we can come and get checked and assessed, which is probably where I see us going at some point, particularly in my industry. We can't put out AI algorithms and things out there and put it in a black box and expect that we don't get tested about that at some point in the future. So I think regulation has a role to play there, and I think the previous speaker made a point around not having a strategy and how it becomes all ad hoc and higgledy-piggledy, and that's really where we're at right now. So that strategy has some part to play in it, but
Yeah, and I think also, so, you know, the sort of what can I do as a member of the audience, that going back to that point about career mobility, if we include the people from our community when we develop our technology, the technology will suit our community and our society much better than if we just import wholesale from overseas. It doesn't mean we can't use tool sets from overseas, but when we're developing the things that work for us, be inclusive, allow that career mobility, and you'll end up with systems that work way better than one that's been designed for even Australia or
So it might be
Singapore.
easier to just white label something that you can pick off the shelf, but that's not going to give you the best result.
no, part of your responsible AI needs to be around how have we trained it. So we can't accept the trained model. And we all use AI-enabled software. We all buy it, we all bring it in, but it's around training it appropriately for our Aotearoa context.
There's a question here. How can New Zealand businesses join the AI forum to, I guess, contribute to the discussion and also follow its progress?
aiforum.org.nz, click the Join Us button.
So it's anyone, there's no barrier to entry?
So it's an organisational base. So normally if you work for a business, it would be that business that would join the forum. If you're an independent contractor or a student, you can join as an individual.
The strategy that the government currently has underway, I would presume that this has to be a living document. It's not like they're going to put something out and that's it, right? This is going to be something that is going to have to be iterated again and again and again. Would that be fair?
Yeah, and I think there's a cross-party parliamentary group, AI group, that sits there that meets regularly to discuss this thing. So I think they're really looking longer term rather than just a single strike of, well, here we are, there's a line in the sand.
Yeah, I mean, strategies change generally, but I think there are some foundational elements that need to be addressed. Going back to how we store our data, do we build our own data centres? Do we take a balanced approach around data and international use of cloud providers? And that some things just won't change. They just need to determine what that might look like for them.
Do we have any answers in that respect yet? Is there messages you're giving to the government as to how they need to think about those things, or is that still all TBC?
I'm going to let you answer that.
Sorry, can you ask me that again?
Are you giving them guidance about how they form this strategy? What should be out? What should be in? Should it be our data centres? How are you guiding them to come up with something that reflects back what you're learning from those various industries?
So we're one group that are helping them to inform them, and one of the key ways we do that is to tell the stories of how New Zealanders are actually using these tool sets and how they're being used effectively. So, and also how you can ask for what you want. So don't be afraid to ask for data sovereignty, because technologists, or most of the technologists I know, are amazing problem solvers. If you give them a problem to solve, they'll solve it. If you don't ask for it, you're not going to get it. And you see this, there's a product called Tuhi, which is currently being rolled out by Te Aotearoa. It's been developed by Lee Timutumu, who's coincidentally on our Kahui Māori. But it's a generative AI tool that sits alongside clinicians, helping them to, taking their notes for them, and eventually will be linked into various other clinical systems. And that in itself is one of those things that's helping that productivity discussion for doctors or clinicians spend 40 to 50% of their time on paperwork. And if we can do anything that meets our treaty obligations and also helps to provide that safety for our standards of data privacy, then that's got to be a good thing.
There's so much more we could discuss, but we are out of time. Thank you so much for your time on the panel. Please put your hands together for Megan and Madeline.
Thank you.